Hey folks, it's James and it's day 4 of our Sketching in Perspective with Procreate series. So download the original Procreate files I made for this video in the link below. Open them up in your iPad if you want to follow along. And get ready to learn how to double the usefulness of every drawing you make with what I call the secret of the magic overlay. Now there's something magical about paintings that capture the effect of twilight and moonlight. And they always make me ask the same question. How the heck did they do it? How did they lay out a painting in the dark? How did they pick the right color to represent darkness when they couldn't see the colors on their palette? And of course, the answer is they didn't. They took notes while they were in the moment, and then they went back to their studios to test their notes and make their paintings. But it's still amazing, right? And then it hit me. I can do the same with Procreate, and it will be much faster and much easier to do than it is with watercolor. Now I'm going to show you the simplest version of this, and to start with I'm going to go back to the gallery and duplicate this daytime drawing. I'll swipe to the left, hit duplicate, and this is so I can have a safe version of this in case I want to come back to the daylight. So I'll open up this duplicate, and now I'm going to do one thing by way of preparation, and I'm going to take these blue windows and I'm just going to lighten them, and you'll see why in a moment. I'm going to go, I might even give them a little bit of a yellow glow, like electric lights in the evening. So I'll brighten that, I'll add that electric glow, and this is just a guess on my part that that's going to do it, and I hope so. So I'll close that now, and I'll go back to the Layers menu. Now the key to these twilight views, the key to getting over your fear of the dark, as they say, is to add a layer at the top. Now I touch the multiply blend mode, because whatever I add to this, I want all the details underneath to be seen. Now I'm going to pick a color, and I'm going to use a classic blue gray or gray violet that I use for this twilight effect. And I'll tap here on this one. And now I'm just going to drag and drop that color over the entire view, okay? Now that's not exactly the right color, so I very often will go into the adjustments menu and hue, saturation, and brightness, and immediately give that either a cooler cast, I think I'll go a little cooler, and a little darker, just to really pump up this effect for you. And saturation is good. We can always come back to that, just like every color, we can come back and adjust that later. Now that's my twilight layer, so to speak. And now the trick is to transform that layer in a couple of different ways. First of all, I'm going to go for the big move. I'll go back to my window layer, tap on that layer, and select that layer. And now you can see each of those is selected around those windows. Now I'm going to go back to my twilight layer, and I'm going to use a 3-finger swipe to cut and paste all those window shapes out of the twilight. Now that turns them into an opaque layer, which you just need to fix, or you can now dial that back with the transparency. And this is something I try to avoid, the transparency, but in this case I think it's going to be effective, and we are just trying to show you the abbreviated version of this. So there are all my electric lights, and I can give them varying degrees of transparency. Let's just do a good ambient amount of glow in the background for the moment. Now the next step is to go into the eraser brush and pick a good eraser. I tend to use the soft airbrush, and you can see that that's that shape. And the first move I'm going to make is to take away from some of these windows. Remember, I'm still in this window layer. So as I erase parts of this window layer, notice how they glow even more. And certainly the windows down at the retail level are going to glow the most, because that's where we want to make people come in and attract them in this beautiful hill town. This could be Sienna or something like that in the evening. Now the next layer, they're going to be people that are home in some of these windows and not in others, but it always looks good to at least have the next second floor to be glowing. And I'll tend to make them glow from the bottom up, so I'll erase it from the bottom up. Now this is some kind of a special thing here. Maybe it's a theater on the second floor, so it's got the big window, and we'll make that special. And then we'll come back here and make sure we get these windows all the way at the end of the piazza. And then I'll just sort of randomly hit the other ones. And this is all according to taste, and you'll develop this skill as you go. So let's do the next layer, which is the twilight layer itself. And this is what's going to make the street glow, okay? And you can see here that I've got this shadow that I still have from my daytime view, the shadow on the street from the sun coming over this building. So I'm going to go ahead and eliminate that. Turn that shadow off. There it is right there. I'll turn that back on. And I'll turn this off too, which is my underlayer for that building. So that shadow is gone now. And now I'll go back to the twilight layer and use my soft eraser brush. And watch as I erase away from the windows out to cause that glow, okay? So there's a general glow at both sides of the street from that soft light spilling out. And then there's a general glow that comes back up here on the top of these buildings, the bounce light from the street and that kind of thing. And I'll just gradually work that again. If I go too far, I can just use 2 finger taps to come back. Let's start there. And then we know that this distant piazza is going to be glowing quite a bit. So I'll start to make all of that glow, at least the bottom layer of it, okay? And the same will be true of these buildings back here. They'll glow from the bottom up where all the life is on the street. Now the tower is slightly different, and I'm going to go to the textured eraser, the Nicky Roll eraser, and you'll see in a moment why, because I'll adjust it to be roughly the width of that tower, and then I'm just going to run that up the tower, and notice what that does. That texture of that brush takes away only part of the twilight layer, so it actually looks like stonework glowing in the distance. And everything's a bit yellow for my taste, but we can fix that in a moment. And let's do the same with some of these buildings in the foreground, okay? So I'll give them the once over. I'll try and make it, maybe the texture is a little bit bigger. So you're really painting, literally painting with light, okay? And let's go back to the flat marker. And let's run that flat marker on the inside of some of these windows, and maybe even over the window a little bit more. So that starts to bring the window alive. It starts to give some depth to that window. Let's give some depth to that arched opening there. And we're going to go and take some of this twilight out of these people so that they're glowing a bit more, and it looks like they're glowing from the overflow from the street. I can add a little highlight to these planters and again take more out from the very leading edge of those people so it looks like they're glowing from bright lights inside. And now what I'll do is I'll come up above that twilight layer and I'll make another layer. I'll do the same thing with the darken or multiply blend mode. I've still got my violet gray selected, and I'll go back to the selection button in freehand, and this time I'm going to activate that dangerous color fill button, and I'll show you why in a moment. I'll raise this up so we can see it. And now I'm going to use the spontaneity of the pencil creating these selections. It's much more spontaneous for me than it is for drawing something carefully. I'm going to use that spontaneity, and I'm going to start to lay in the shadows that would be caused by these shoppers as they go by in front of these bright lights. It's really kind of a silhouette thing. And I love this, and some of you that have seen my YouTubes know that I use this quite a bit because it just seems to create such a natural looking shadow because I can't really control what I'm doing, and so I don't get overly tight about it. And I'll come back on this side of the street and add this. So again, you can see it's fast, it's spontaneous, and you are literally painting with light. And all of the same principles apply to making lighting studies, whether you're doing them over rendered floor plans or rendered elevations. And these are tremendously useful in convincing your clients of the merits of your design or getting them set up to go and work with a lighting designer if that's required. You'll find a transcript of this video along with a copy of the original Procreate files I used in the demos, so you can download them to your own iPad, explore the order and contents of all the layers, and use the video replay feature in your app to watch, pause, and replay every one of the making of these images, and all at your own pace. To see the first video in this 4-part series you just watched, click on this image here, and I will see you in the next lesson.